I'm about to have a heartfelt conversation with two very special guests regarding post-traumatic stress, Kim Jewell and Di McMath. Kim will share her experience of recovering from trauma and addiction. Today she's a driving force in helping others change beliefs and perceptions surrounding PTSD and addiction through programs that she delivers. Di, a former paramedic of 15 years, has seen some terrible things and created a resilience program for emergency service workers. She's dedicated to help decrease the stigma of mental illness, PTSD, and suicide in the industry. Two incredible women who've had first-hand experience from different ends of the spectrum. So Kim, I can't imagine growing up in a family of abuse that led you to addiction. Today I see here an incredible woman sitting beside me. Tell me a little bit of your former life.
Well, Jan, I'm the sixth child of 10 children from a very volatile family. By the time I was 7 years old, I suffered sexual abuse. I was a sensitive child, bullied at school. I had learning difficulties. At 14, I turned to drugs and alcohol as a way of coping with my anxiety. I quickly went down the track of addiction very fast, and at 17, my father said to me I needed to clean up or to move out, and I chose to move out. So that led to another 7 years of addiction. At 24, my dad passed away suddenly, and my dad was my hero. And so even though we had a love-hate relationship, I always knew he'd be there for me. And my world just spiraled out of control. My family didn't want to have anything to do with me. I just went to a very, very dark place. And it took another 2 years before I was able to make any changes.
So what do you think that was that moment that led you to making those changes?
Well, after a breakup, I was on a scuba diving trip and I decided to end my life. And when they were pulling me out of the water and I was coming back to consciousness and I was lost. And in that moment, I just heard this voice in my head saying to me, maybe, just maybe, if I put the drugs and alcohol down long enough, I'd figure out why my life was such a mess. And that was the moment that I knew things had to change. I didn't know how, but I knew they had to change.
And change you did. Di, a paramedic for 15 years. You certainly must have experienced some really challenging moments as well as a joy of the job. Very rewarding, I imagine. Tell me what you loved about the job and tell me what led you to resign from the job.
Oh, look, Jan, I loved so much about the job. And to be honest, I'd probably still be doing it if you could pick and choose the jobs, but you can't. I loved being able to help people on their worst days. And I loved the friendships, the camaraderie within the service. It's just like family. But I think the beginning of the end for me was when a close friend and colleague, he passed away suddenly, and it really rocked my world. You know? And over the next few years, I felt like I was going to funerals of people that their lives were cut short, and the last one being my mum. 16, she passed away 16 days after she was diagnosed with a brain tumour.
Oh, incredible.
And I was with her when she died. And I think it was just reality hit that I could potentially go to a job one day and it's someone that I know, so I didn't want to do that anymore.
It would seem like personal trauma in both of your lives it was a catalyst for change. So, Kim, after your father's death, you went down a pathway of interventions. Can you tell us about some of the interventions that led you to recovery?
Certainly. I started with the 12-step programs. And then while I was doing 12-step programs, I went to psychologists and psychiatrists and various counselors. And they all told me what to do to get better, but not how to do it. And what I noticed was, even though I wasn't using drugs or drinking anymore, my life was still spiraling with the anxiety and all the trauma. And I didn't know what to do. It was starting to impact my marriage. It impacted how I was parenting my children. Then, 11 years into my recovery, my brother passed away. And my brother was my hero. He helped me get clean from drugs and alcohol. He had contracted HIV and then lung cancer. So when he died, I found myself curled up in a corner on the floor, unable to get up, unable to cope. And that was a moment that I realized, you know what, I have to find a different way.
Thank you. And Di, when you finally resigned from being a paramedic, you wrote a blog.
Yeah.
And your blog was, unless you've been there, you wouldn't understand. A paramedic's farewell to the job. Now, that blog had over 300,000 views. Tell me a little bit about some of the comments.
Oh, look, it blew me away, the response to it. It was like ripping off a Band-Aid and exposing a wound that so many others had as well. I was getting emails and messages from all around the world saying things like, thank you for writing this. It's like you've been reading my mind. And so it was really a light bulb moment. I thought, wow, there's really an issue here. And, you know, statistics came out that one officer in Australia every 6 weeks is suiciding. Yeah, and in America it's one every 18 hours.
Oh, incredible.
So I thought, I need to do something about this. Why don't I put my coaching experience with my paramedic experience and put them together, and that's when I came up with the 000 Resilience Program. So it's a 2-day workshop, and it's facilitated by current and former officers, and it provides real and relevant coping strategies so that when they're faced with challenges in their personal and their professional life, that they can better mentally cope.
Sounds amazing. And so, Kim, your journey from childhood abuse and trauma to addiction, and then your own recovery, that's led you to be an advocate for change for people who've led similar pathways. Tell me a little of that.
Well, for me, I didn't think there was a way out. And what I did was I studied all these alternative different methods. And it wasn't until I found out how the mind works and how it works in relation to trauma that I started to get some relief from the trauma and found coping skills that were different from what I'd known. So for me, it's about letting people know that trauma is not a life sentence. There is a way out.
So taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two very passionate women, two incredible women who've turned their adversity into an advantage. And if I could use Di's words, if you haven't been there, you wouldn't understand. My two guests today truly understand.